This is CBS 2 News This Morning.
Here we go again. A major storm just hours away. How flood-prone communities are preparing their homes and the measures city and state leaders are taking.
Migrant families kicked out of city shelters this morning. The 60-day eviction notice ruling causing city officials and advocates to push back.
A retaining wall collapse that impacted communities for weeks. What CBS 2 has learned about certain inspections that were never completed.
Good morning on this Tuesday, January 9th. I'm Chris Raggi.
I'm Mary Calvi. Welcome to CBS 2 News This Morning. Our First Alert weather team standing by. Tony Sadiku is live for us this morning. But first, let's begin with John Elliott. He has the latest on what we can expect. It's 5:30 right now.
Thank you, Mary. Hi, Tony. Hi, everybody. Let's do it right. So you want this one today, not this one. The wind is going to be a real issue with this storm. And don't forget it. If you have a standard 9 to 5, or even if you're wrapping things up at 2 to 4, you're going to need it. So make sure you're ready to stay dry and hang on. Want to tell you about wind advisories, wind watch, wind warning. We're concerned about tropical storm force winds for parts of the area. Some of the models are cranking out hurricane force winds. Backing up this morning out of the gate, once this thing rolls in, it starts as winter precipitation, more likely ice than snow for Sullivan Ulster. Before you lose it, it goes to rain. The flood watches for everybody. Training rain could set us up for flash flooding as well. Coastal flood alerts, we're talking about 2 to 3 feet inundation levels possible. Watch your high tide times. But again, if you live there, you know the routine. You got to move the car. Today's tough, 49. Worst of it definitely tonight, but it eases in and it kind of rolls in. And this is on the heels of all of the snow as well. So we'll talk more about that, talk about some river issues, check in with the weather watchers too. Right now, though, right back to Chris.
Okay, John, thanks. Let's send it out to our First Alert weather team. Tony Sadiku is in Wayne, New Jersey this morning. Tony?
Hey, good morning, Chris. Yeah, I know we're going to talk a lot about this storm, but what's also fascinating from a weather perspective is just how much different it's going to feel as the storm is arriving versus how it feels now. Like standing out here now, the air is so still. There's barely a branch blowing in the wind, but that's getting set to change. Our mobile weather lab, actually, I mean, our anemometer picking up maybe a mile an hour. The other thing that's going to change is the temperatures. We're in the upper 20s right now. How about we double that? A lot of us in the upper 40s, maybe for a brief time in the 50s. This storm is dragging in a lot of tropical moisture, a lot of tropical air, so a lot of the snow is going to be gone. Instead, it's going to be all about the rain, which unfortunately is going to mean flooding for areas like here that have recently dealt with that. And we're going to take a close look, Chris, at some of the flooding potentials when I see you in a bit.
Okay, Tony, thank you.
5:32 right now. Let's get you a check on First Alert traffic. Here's Guy Stanier.
Thank you, Mary. Starting in Woodridge, New Jersey, crews are out repairing down power lines on the northbound side of Route 17 at Moonachie Avenue. This is from yesterday's tanker truck fire that had all lanes closed in both directions for hours. One lane currently remains blocked on the northbound side. Over to Brooklyn, a live look outside. Cleanup from an earlier truck fire still has 2 lanes closed on the outbound side of the Gowanus Expressway right near 38th Street. No major delays through the area. We do have some subway issues in Brooklyn. Northbound F trains are running with delays due to an NYPD investigation at Coney Island, Stillwell Avenue. Alternate side parking is in effect today citywide. Chris and Mary, back to you.
Okay, Guy, thank you. Now to New Jersey, where the governor has declared a state of emergency ahead of the storm.
CBS News' Christina Fan joining us live from Patterson, where the mayor's warning residents about potentially dangerous conditions. Christina.
Chris and Mary, so many families here in Patterson are still physically and emotionally exhausted from the storm 3 weeks ago that not only damaged cars, homes and businesses, but also closed down schools. And now residents are fearful it may happen all over again. In anticipation for the storm today, the mayor of Patterson will be declaring a citywide emergency at 9 a.m. Officials are worried this incoming system will exacerbate inclement conditions, and not just here in town. Back in December in Little Falls, residents had to use boats to float home after epic rainfall forced the Passaic River beyond its banks. The mayor of Little Falls says his crews just finished cleaning up from that flood and are now preparing again.
DPW has been clearing all of our catch basins to make sure that they are free of any debris or any blockings. So we're hoping that the forecast is off a little bit.
Forecasters say, unfortunately, this is a high confidence forecast, in part because of pre-existing conditions. Rivers are already swollen, and a lot of the snowpack in northern Jersey is expected to melt. Governor Phil Murphy has also taken action, declaring a state of emergency that will take effect at 5 p.m. tonight across all 21 counties. Reporting live from Paterson, New Jersey, Christina Fan, CBS 2 News.
Christina, thank you. 5:35 right now on Long Island. Residents are bracing for heavy rain and flooding. Utilities across the island are preparing for thunderstorms and dangerous wind gusts that could bring down trees and knock out power. Nassau County officials say crews will be out cleaning drains and readying with heavy-duty pumps if needed. Coastal flood warnings will go into effect later today for the South Shore.
And stay with CBS 2 for the latest track on today's rain. We'll have live updates on the air and on our website, cbsnewyork.com. And our team will be on the air early when we kick things off right in the thick of it tomorrow morning, 4 a.m. Join us on CBS 2.
5:35 this morning. The first wave of evictions is set to begin for migrant families who receive 60-day notices from New York City shelters.
These families will now have to reapply for housing. CBS 2's Elijah Westbrook is live in the newsroom with more on the plans for eviction today for these families. Elijah?
That's right. Well, Chris and Mary, at least 40 migrant families are spending their last few hours this morning in a hotel. Well, starting around 10 a.m., the city will evict them. And we're told if they have nowhere else to go, these families will have to start the whole process all over again. Clock is ticking this morning for dozens of migrant families who will be kicked out of their shelter rooms.
It's not right. It's not right.
City leaders and immigration advocates demanding the city cancel 60-day shelter eviction notices to families with children living in a number of midtown hotels like the Row, the Watson, the Stewart, and the Walcott.
Let's be perfectly clear. The 60-day rule is one thing and one thing only: harassment.
The notices, which went out in October, were originally supposed to be up in late December, but the city postponed them to allow the families to stay put during the holidays. The first wave of evictions begin today, with 40 families at the Row Hotel asked to reapply for new shelter assignments.
In their effort to reduce the number of folks who need housing, they think ripping children out of their beds will make these families leave and go back to their countries of origin. That will not happen.
Advocates like Christine Quinn believe children and their families will end up on the streets, but the mayor and members of his administration who deal with the placement of asylum seekers say that won't happen.
This is not going to be a city where we're going to place children and families on the street and have them sleep on the street. That is not going to happen. We've made that clear.
Well, City Hall officials insist they have met with each family at least 4 times to help them map out the next steps for housing, jobs, and keeping their kids in school. They also say that children won't be uprooted from their schools and new housing options will be offered. Chris?
Okay, Elijah Westbrook in the newsroom for us. Elijah, thank you. Allegations of anti-Semitic slurs during a high school basketball game. A Yonkers basketball coach and player were removed from a public high school team. In a letter, the head of the Liffeld School in Hartsdale says it happened during Thursday's varsity girls basketball game at Roosevelt High School. Early college studies, he said a small number of players on the opposing team directed hurtful anti-Semitic comments towards members of their team. The interim Yonkers school superintendent says he expects more information to come out once schools share information with one another. But so far, he says
they merely heard the comment "Free Palestine."
If you go to a basketball game and you say to a Jewish student, "Free Palestine," that's not a political statement. That's a basketball game, and that was meant to make that child uncomfortable, which makes it hate speech. So we can't have that.
The Liffeld School declined an interview. Leaders from the schools are looking into gathering players from both schools together for a discussion.
5:39, 325 people facing charges this morning after a pro-Palestinian rally blocked the commute. From the Brooklyn Bridge to the Manhattan Bridge and the Holland Tunnel, thousands of demonstrators Monday called for a ceasefire in Gaza. They marked 3 months since Hamas attacked Israel and Israel invaded Gaza in response. Demonstrators say they plan to continue escalating their displays of disapproval until a complete ceasefire is enacted in Gaza.
Well, a state lawmaker wants answers from Metro North after a retaining wall collapsed back in October, causing service cancellations and delays.
It happened behind a $3 million mansion in Westchester County, sending tons of dirt and rock onto the Hudson Line tracks, affecting service for weeks. CBS 2 obtained inspection reports for that wall. They show inspectors did not walk the property or take a close look at the wall in the years before the collapse. They said the wall was inaccessible, even though land records show much of it was on railroad property.
You have to be really scrupulous at this point about checking all of these retaining walls and make sure they could withstand the new demands that climate change is putting on them.
We asked Metro North about these inspection reports, but the railroad did not respond.
Time now, 5:40. Coming up, financial help for people living with sickle cell disease. What's being done for patients?
A man in Queens says garbage from a nearby railroad has been piling up in his backyard. What happened after CBS 2 looked into the problem? Tony.
Hey, Mary, still keeping an eye on our red alert forecast, which promises everything from heavy rain, gusty winds, and also the threat for coastal flooding. I'm along the Passaic now. A lot of folks still reeling from the last storm. So we'll take a closer look at how much rise we could see, how high those waters could get, and where we could potentially see some historic flooding next.